I'm John Peterson, otherwise known as JP. I'm Vice President of Zoological Operations. But I run our rescue operations, some people know, for a very long time. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about rescue. If you've ever seen this before, you might hear some stuff that's new, you might see some stuff that was old. Really, I don't know what everybody knows about SeaWorld Rescue. So one of the big things we're going to show you is we're over 39,000 animals rescued since conception. But one of the other things I want you guys to understand is what's going on in the last couple of months with what's called an unusual mortality event that you might hear in the news about manatees. So if you want to flip this slide here, you're going to see some very interesting things go on. So there it is, and it's very at the bottom. It's 39,000, I think 542 animals rescued at point. On the next slide, you're going to see where we stand for the last month. The last month has been really, really busy. There's just numbers up there that in norm, we don't see these kind of numbers running right now. So it's why is it going on? What are we seeing that's causing this? Well, an unusual mortality event of starvation with manatees, a cold front that hit, we had a warmer winter again, now it's getting cold again. So you got, in the month of November, end of the month of November into the start of December, 31 cold stuns on sea turtles that were brought down from New England, 10 manatees, a total of 54 for the years. We had a manatee in Galveston, it's still there, it's at SeaWorld San Antonio. Most people don't know that all our parks do rescue. Dolphin in Cutoff, Louisiana, and 224 birds. We're already up to 2 manatees as of yesterday to the start of this year. 1 dolphin, and we got some other stuff on the cooker. The next slide is sort of an interesting one. In that month that I'm talking about, and it's about a 3.5 week, we traveled a little over 6,590 miles. The team's run, and the map is a little larger than what my screen is, which is fine, but we're 5,298 when I made it. At the end of the year, we did 6,000 plus miles of travel. But New Orleans, we went into New Orleans last year 4 times for dolphin rescues. We had one in November. Galveston, like I said, we went for a manatee. Really interesting fact that you guys will be the first to know, we actually have another manatee in Texas right now, about Brownsville, Texas. Everybody know where Brownsville, Texas is? No, you do. Yeah. It's about 3 miles from the border. So on that water, it's very interesting because we can't cross over into Mexico. We have to stay on the U.S. side. So as the manatee goes that way, I've got to walk away, and as the manatee comes back into, we got to go back into it. You say, well, why are you going out there for this manatee? He'll be fine. Hopefully he will, but he probably won't because water temperatures are way too cold for him. They're starting to drop. There's another front pushing right now. So unfortunately, if we don't get to him quick enough, he will expire to cold stress. But the teams are all over it, and that's working with a lot of networks. That's Southeast Stranding Network, that's the Texas Park, the SeaWorld Park here in Orlando, NOAA, U.S. Fisheries, a lot of different groups coming together. Next slide, give you a little bit more on catching in Louisiana. This is second rescue in Louisiana last year. As you can tell, we don't have any pretty boats. We don't have anything real fancy. This was after Hurricane Ida. These animals were up in a riverway that goes up. They were in fresh water, so they were in zero salinity, about 120 miles from where they should be. They got pushed during the storm. Did not want to go back under the bridges, so the flood probably gave them enough water to get through. Really interesting thing about this picture is the dolphin's in the far back. You can't really see it, I just know where it is. There's also a 12-foot alligator that's in that setup. We always deal with alligators, and people say, oh, are you scared of alligators? Not really. Only a certain time of the year you get nervous of alligators, and that's during their nesting season. Outside of that, as long as you're a little bit loud, you move your feet a lot, you stomp in the water, they'll usually get out of the way. But it does make for an interesting couple minutes. Well, you gotta let that alligator get his way out of my net so I don't have to deal with it. Next slide's sort of fun. These are the 2 dolphins that were inside there. It's a mom and calf pair. And people say, where'd you go with them? Did you bring them back here? Did you take them to Texas Park? Did you take them to IMMS or Audubon? No, we took about an hour and 35-minute boat ride down all the way and literally let them go right off the bow of our boat back into the Gulf. Last year we did 19 dolphin rescues, and all 19 dolphin rescues, we returned them back to their natural waterways on the same day that we did the rescue. Now you say, well, we saw on Facebook that you had a dolphin Apollo who went over to Clearwater, who was in our, yeah, that's a stranded dolphin, actually washed up on the beach. So as we're all over the United States doing rescues, we're also operating out of this park with all our rehab centers. So these teams just run and spread. It's the reach we have, it's a really neat thing. But that's really cool to see as a mom and calf pair, healthy, good. Why do you put towels on? Well, a couple reasons. One, we don't want to get sunburned. We've got a ride to go and they're not used to being out. Two, it's a way we can keep them cooled down, so we can just keep wetting it down. And then three, and you'll laugh at this, when you drive them that fast down waterways, you'll wind burn. So their skin's really sensitive to that. So you protect against all that. Why don't you cover up their heads? That's pretty obvious. They need to breathe. But we protect everything else. Next slide here actually shows where we rescued, where we traveled, released, and where we traveled and released. And you say, well, it's two animals, why? We didn't split them up. This is multiple trips. We took 5 animals out of that waterway. 2 pairs, mom and calves pairs, and then a young adolescent male who was on his own. Had gone up in that, if you look at that river where you see the dots in the run up into the grass. If I zoom this way in, it's a riverway that goes up, a waterway that goes through a bunch of dikes, and then works its way up to an oil center. So anyhow, but those are the tracks. So once we're done, we don't just walk away from them. We're not just like, have a good day, swim off, great to see. We like that, but we also keep a tag on them. Most people ask me, how long does the tag last? It depends what we're trying to find out. On these kind of tags, I just want Latin lunch, so I'm just looking for traveling. That's what we want to see off it. So that tag will last us anywhere from 6 months to a year. Some other tags we use, we want a lot more information. And the tags are about yay big. They're really small. The other tags, I want a lot of information, like how deep are you, what's the water temperature, how long do you stay down. That's what we do on pelagics. Those tags don't last as long because when they hit the surface, there's an upload of all that information. It burns a lot of battery. But in these, we get a lot of information on track of where you go. Now you say, okay, you got all the track, what's that do? Well, 2 things. One, we can tell when they're really migrating correctly, like they're back with a pod again. 2, if they were to go back and beach again, I have to go back. That's part of it. We have to go back and help them. So we say on the hook. Until that tag burn is out, if anything happens, we as SeaWorld, we as Southeast Stranding will react to it and we will head back to that animal immediately. Next slide's going to show you guys just some of our partners, some of our groups that we work with. If I put every partner up there, I'd have like 15 slides. We work with so many different organizations, groups, inside Florida, outside Florida, inside the United States and outside the United States, all to come together to care for an animal. So this is just a little touch. If you've ever seen this before, you might have seen this. This is in Brownsville, Texas. I end up in Brownsville a lot. I'm not sure why. Well, I've got a couple of theories. Brownsville does a lot of fishing, and that's why we get into what we got in here. It also is a very, very lush area with fish. It's a lush area with grass, so animals congregate there because it's a good environment. So this is us using a boat. Dolphins up on what we call a Navy mat. It's called a Navy mat because it was designed by the Navy. It floats. It can hold probably somewhere around 3,000 pounds above water, so it's a great working platform when you're in deep water, and that's deep water that we're dealing with, so we put them up on the mat so we can deal with them. The next slide's going to show why we're dealing with them. Now it'll actually show the compass. Big set, big set of net. People say, it's got to be easy. Go out there, just drive your boat around, and whatever you got in there, pull it up. I'm not a trawler. I'm not allowed to do that. My permit's very specific. I'm allowed to catch the animal at need. That's it. No other animal. If a sea turtle's inside there and touches my net, it has to come in for 48 hours for observation. If a manatee's inside there, I have to open up the net, let them out. If a shark's inside there, it's a protected species, I cannot. So when you do something like this and you say, well, how do you know for sure you had nothing in there? I'll be honest with you, that's why it takes us hours and hours and days to get this done sometimes, because I will not place that set until I know my area is clear to do it. So if I'm in the middle of a set and I'm coming around and the dolphin's in the center, and I see that I've got a turtle, or I see that there's a shark, and from 14 feet up on the tower, you can see really good in most water, I will stop, I will turn around and open my net back up. So I will not close it up, because that will be an issue. If, and it does happen, if I do, and there's something in there that we have to deal with it, then we have to walk through that whole process. Next slide is explaining why. It's at the bottom. It's really hard for you guys to see because it's really blown up, and I apologize. He had about 75 hooks on him. He had a little over, I think it was 15 pounds worth of monofilament line and lures and weights. This poor little guy was dragging around. You can go to the next slide. I'll show it better. This little guy was pulling around just all these fishing hooks. And you say, well, what do you do? Well, we give a long-lasting antibiotic. Our veterinarians go with us. So we check them, we treat them. We've got this really cool machine that I can take blood, I can put it in this little disc, it's called a G4 disc, and I stick it in, it's called an iStat. It runs all the blood in the field for me. I actually love it. The only thing I don't like is it doesn't like water, it doesn't like salt water, and it seems every time we go out, someone drops it in the water on me after we're done, and I end up having to get another one. So go to the next slide here. No more slides, all right. So why do we make all this effort? Why is it so important to do that? Do you know why? You're like, don't call me out here. That's all right, I won't call you out. I'll tell you why it's important to me, because you guys need to be able to see dolphins and manatees and turtles as you guys grow up. And hopefully as you grow up, you'll do the same thing and help tell that story to make sure your kids can see dolphins, manatees, and turtles, and sharks and all that. You know, people don't realize SeaWorld also runs the largest rescue facility for corals. Florida reef trap is getting destroyed by, for lack of a better word, a really bad virus and bug that's running across and it's killing it. So NOAA and FWC and U.S. Fish and Wildlife are down in dry tortugas, and they're actually got healthy corals that they've brought back up. And because SeaWorld and my aquarists are so good at taking care of corals, they're able to treat it. We have a veterinarian here whose specialty is corals. Corals are animals, it's not a plant, it is an animal. Some of them have 3, 4, 5 mouths. So the goal of this is we have now 700 animals who are growing and getting bigger, and they're spawning, and the spawn is going to be grown again, and then we're going back and starting with knowing them to plant back into the Florida reef trap on this side where this virus has already run through and it's no longer there, and reseeding and then allowing the reef to regrow. Because if you don't have coral, we got problems. So if you don't have the bottom of the ocean healthy and the top of the ocean healthy, everything in between falls. So it's really, really important. That's what's going on with manatees right now. We've got no seagrass. We've got a 70+ mile range of what you would call just a desert at this point. The seagrass isn't there, the fishing's not there, the sea turtles are having problems, manatees have nothing to eat, and they all come back to this area to migrate, to lay eggs, to come in for cold stress. So the complicators, because our oceans aren't real healthy on the bottom, are creating massive problems on the top. So that's why it's so important to rescue turtles, is why it's so important to deal with corals and take care of that. Guys, I really appreciate all your time. If you have questions, you can raise your hand, I'll walk down and talk to you, but thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.